Hello, Caravan of Love here. Did you know that about 500 years ago, there were Inca bodies sacrificed in the mountains? Did you know that they did sacrifices because they knew that their lives were in danger, okay? These were the natives in Peru and all across South America. There was an invasion during the mid-1800s, okay? That was approximately 500 years ago. So recently, between 7 and 5 years ago, archaeologists dug up a young girl, about 15 years old, who had been sacrificed by her family. And it looked like she had just been laid to rest yesterday. However, the reason she was sacrificed was because these people were terrified. They knew that they were in danger when the Europeans came over and invaded the land, okay? You've been governed to believe that it was a smooth ride, that the natives welcomed the Europeans with open arms. No, that's not the way it happened. These people were terrified, as I said, afraid for their lives. They even sacrificed their own children. You've been governed to believe that Thanksgiving is a time to celebrate the time of when the natives and the pilgrims got together and gave thanks. They had nothing to be thankful for because their land was being invaded. Okay? Watch closely.
Is unlocking the secrets of the ancient mountains. Anthropologist Johann Reinhardt has spent nearly 2 decades exploring Andean peaks.
For about 16 years, I've done research on people's beliefs about mountains in the Andes because it's like a key to understanding a lot of parts of Andean cosmology, religion.
Today, Johann begins a climb to the top of Sarasara, a giant volcano in southern Peru. When they first climbed the mountain in 1983, Johann found the ruins of ancient walls on the summit. He hoped to excavate the site, but never got the chance. Violent weather and terrorism prevented his return for more than 13 years.
I'm going to fast forward this video because it shows all about how the archaeologists climbed the mountains and discovered the 500-year-old bodies of these children. So I'm going to try to get to that point of the video.
people of the Andes, previous to the Incas, did worship mountains, but in a different way. They seem to worship mountains from a distance, but the Incas are the ones who got the idea of climbing this ladder to heaven and going up to the top of the mountain and actually engaging in their ritual practices at that spot, which must have been their concept of heaven.
Well, at that point, that's when they sacrificed their children so that the gods would be able to protect them from the harm and evil that was coming their way. Continue to watch.
While still on the lower slopes of Sarasara, Johan's team discovers evidence of ancient mountain worship. It's in a cave, thousands of feet below the summit.
We found metal artifacts, along with some ceramics. From the ceramics, we think these are from the Wari culture. Further studies will determine the meaning of all this. We've also found human skulls, as well as animal remains.
The finds are intriguing, but they're not Inca. They were probably left by the Wari, a culture that flourished in Peru 500 years before the Inca. On his last trip, Johan saw Inca ruins 1,000 feet higher up.
There's an Inca site that's out of the way, and so what we're talking about doing is sending the burros up ahead with the gear, and some of us splitting off and then heading on over to take a look at the Inca site.
Sarasara is over 150 miles south of Cusco, the Inca capital. But according to a Spanish chronicle, it was among the most venerated mountains in the empire. Johan hopes the ruins will help confirm the mountain's prominence.
We're 15,200 feet, about 220 feet, and we're at a hilltop in which there's been a whole series of structures built, and they look to be clearly Inca, some with walls up to about 1.5 meters, about 5 feet high. The number of the structures and the layout indicates that this was a staging point on the way up to the summit of Sarasara.
Johan.
Okay, so you see where the archaeologists go and they discover, this is where they discover all of the human sacrifices, mostly children. So I'm going to try to get to the beginning, where they show the mummies that they found. Just a second. I'm going to try to fast forward it some more, because in this section that we're on now, they're mostly talking about their discovery, but they're not showing it yet. So I'm going to try to get to that part. I think it's right along here is when they find the bodies.
Rooms here, and nearby are a couple of small corrals. There are also living quarters, probably for the people who fetched and carried material such as wood for the ascent of the Sarasara volcano.
The complex appears to be a huge staging area used by the Incas on their journeys up the mountain.
What we see here up in the background is the western northern summit. There's one we can't see just in the back where the ruins are located, but clearly to us anyway, it looks like the Incas would have gone up perhaps that scree slope or perhaps up this ridge, then up that scree slope to get to the summit. And it's one of the few routes of access that you can get on this mountain because it's quite steep all the way around.
Now, these people, they really did a lot. They climbed and they walked for days and miles, you know. They would give the children, like, give them doses, large doses of alcohol and cocaine, just so that they can be able to handle the horrifying situation that they had to face. I think a lot of the children knew that they were going to be sacrificed, and they were willing because they wanted to save their culture from what was to come ahead.
Johann's interest in Sarasara was sparked in part by intriguing references in the Spanish chronicles. But was Peru's past accurately portrayed in the invaders' accounts? Sonia Guillen is one of Peru's leading experts on mummified bodies. She has spent years studying the contents of exposed graves in the vast coastal desert of southern Peru. Like many other investigators, she is highly suspicious of the Spanish chronicles.
You have to take chroniclers with a grain of salt. There are chroniclers and chroniclers. They're the ones that were closer to the events. Those are the ones that heard about it. They were not close to them. They also had their own intentions. Some of the chroniclers, for example, were sent to destroy the religious activity of the Indians.
Now, you heard it yourself. These were the Spaniards. They were coming to invade the land. They forced the Indians to get rid of their own beliefs and their own religions and forced them to become Christians. And keep in mind, at this time, 500 years ago, African Americans were, you guessed it, going through slavery. So it was a lot going on during this time. You know, you had them invading the lands, going to different countries, taking people, and just basically killing them and doing what they want with them.
They made sure that they looked like pagan people. That led to the belief that these priests were exaggerating in their presentations of their rituals.
Accounts of one Inca ceremony in particular seemed exaggerated. Kapa Kocha, a mysterious ritual in which the Incas sacrificed their children to the mountain gods.
The Kapa Kocha ritual was always presented as very bloody and unchristian.
The descriptions were so grotesque, scholars doubted the ceremony actually took place.
Although the evidence for Capacocha has been there in the Spanish chroniclers for years, no one paid much attention to it until the discovery of frozen bodies, which suddenly makes the whole subject real.
The Spaniards tried to make it look like that the Indians were just cruel and unreligious people, not religious, but unspiritual people. But that was just the opposite. The Indians were very spiritual, but they tried to make it look like that they were not. The Spaniards wanted the future people like you and I to believe that they were just these pagan, out of control, non-spiritual people, but they weren't. Continue to watch.
Deep in the bowels of a museum in Chile, a translucent coffin holds evidence suggesting Capacocha was all too real. Found on a mountaintop in 1954, he's been locked in a freezer ever since. The frozen body of a young boy. died 500 years ago, a child of the Inca. They named him the El Plomo Boy, for the peak where he was discovered. Dr. Sylvia Quevedo Kawasaki leads the team of conservationists, which is struggling to keep the child as well preserved in the lab as he was in his icy tomb.
Esto lo hacemos cada 10 años, cada 5 años.
We do this every 5 or 10 years, but we haven't done it since 1985. This little piece I'm removing will be sent away for analysis in order to calculate humidity. He has a characteristic smell caused by changes in body fat. Although it's a strong, penetrating smell, it's a good one. As doctors, we're guided by smells, by touch, by sensitivity. Everything available to us is a valid resource. Sometimes the smell tells us his condition, and in this case, it's good.
The El Plomo Boy was adorned with exquisite Inca textiles and jewelry, all perfectly preserved.
Look how his hair is braided. See his hair?
Found with him was an array of artifacts, including small pouches containing his baby teeth and nail clippings. There was a gold llama.
Not much different from the ancient Egyptians, how they would mummify their kings and stuff like that and put them in the tombs. Well, it's a lot that we've been told that was not true about our history. So this is just a little starting point. You have to continue doing the research. The Frozen Maiden is what she's called. And you can find others on this same channel, learning about how archaeologists have found these human sacrifices during those times of invasions that they tried to keep from us. Just know that everything that you've been told is not true. So you have to research yourself, okay? Well, with that being said, caravan of love, loving myself more and more. And you should be doing the same. Thank you for joining. See you next time. Bye-bye.